Hey, welcome to Networking Working Group Meeting 3. I'm Kavya, Product Manager of the SALT Open team. Usually we are from the SALT team side, we are mostly like passive listeners, and we do hope this gives an opportunity for the community to come in and lead the conversations, a discussion around where they want it to be. And the focus areas basically comes from the community. Since Mircha was joining for the first time, I thought there's a couple of items I can quickly run it by. There's one item is that these meetings are set in a way that they'll be recorded and uploaded in the cloud, and later it'll also be uploaded in the YouTube videos without me or anybody from the SALT team side having to join in. So that's something which the team doesn't have to worry about. So I think the Mircha sent out a nice agenda for the meeting. So we can maybe begin with a quick round of introductions and then get started. And as I mentioned before, I'm the product manager from the SALT core team. Wayne, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm Wayne. Wayne Warner. I'm from Arkansas, and I'm on the open team for Salt Stack.
So, Mircha, do you want to go next?
Hey, thanks, Kavya, for the introduction and everything. Yeah, I'm Mircha, and I work for a company for DigitalOcean. Yeah, I've been with the Salt community for quite a few years now. And should I go ahead and present briefly the agenda right now, or maybe a little bit later?
Yeah, that would be great. We have, I think, Alberto, who needs to introduce himself, and after that, I think I'll leave the forum to you.
Cool. Go ahead.
Hi. Yes, I am Alberto. I am part of the networking team. Sorry, this is my first meeting. I was out of the office for the other two. Yes, I will check how is this agenda, so I will try to attach to it, but maybe I can report what I want to work and the plan that I have for this sprint and the next one.
Okay. Sounds great. Mircha, it's all yours now.
Cool, thanks. Thanks, and welcome, Alberto. Are you working for SoulStack?
I am working for SUSE.
Okay, nice. All right, so hopefully you will help us dig into some of the issues or challenges. I'm going to describe briefly, just a little bit. All right, so with this, I will present the first item. It's about some memory leak and the proxy minions. This is mainly for proxy minions that manage devices remotely through connecting to them via SSH or anything that involves SSH, meaning netconf or pure SSH or anything that is SSH-like, where you have to use, where you have to disable multiprocessing. We know that the multiprocessing is by default enabled, and when you set that option multiprocessing to false, the process is going, the minion is going to behave differently, and each task when you execute is going to be, or when you run a new, for example, a state, it's going to be executed under a separate thread, but within the same parent process. I will go a little bit deeper into this later, but now just want to finish with the agenda. And a separate topic I would like to tackle today is about managing a large number of network devices. And specifically, something that the community addressed many times is without having to run thousands of processes. Very briefly, this is because there are many large networks in this world, consisting on thousands, or I've heard of hundreds of thousands, and nobody wants to manage hundreds of thousands of processes, each consuming 80 megs of memory or more. I mean, nobody has so many resources to just waste sometimes. All right. Does this sound good so far? Cool. I will go back to the first item about the memory leaks. As I was saying, is about proxy minions that rely on SSH to establish the connectivity between the minion process and the device to be managed. The core issue is because you can't fork a SSH socket, and for this reasoning, SSH-based proxy minion needs to use multi-threading. But the issue with multi-threading, especially in Python and especially in an always running process, is that Python is particularly bad at the garbage collection. It's also probably because some things have been implemented in a way that maybe doesn't really make sense to be implemented for a always running process, and it's particularly hard to dig into this and debug and find out the root cause. But what I want to say is maybe we should be looking into implementing a way to be able to manage devices via SSH or anything that relies SSH again, without having this limitation of using multi-threading instead of multi-processing. It's a very big challenge. I've been looking into this for years, but I'm hoping that if we work together, so not only myself looking, and I'm looking also into getting people that have a lot more experience than me on the soul side, and also people that have a lot of more experience than me on the software side, and so on, and collaborate and sort this issue out for once.
So sorry, the approach here. I mean, for me this problem is kind of new. I didn't found this problem myself. Maybe because I am not working too much with SSH with Salt. So the problem here is that multiprocessing is using is enabling the bug, and some data structure is collecting a lot of memory. It is never free, so there is maybe some kind of cycle there that the garbage collector from Python is not able to free the graph of this data structure. And the approach is that drop multi-threading and use something different, maybe async IO, something like that.
Yeah, could be. I think IO could be a good candidate. Yeah.
But this is eventually is not going to fix the bug, no? Because the problem is in the structure itself, no? So the cycle is going to be there that you mentioned. This data structure that is not designed for long running process is still there. So we have any clue about where this data structure is, and do we have a bug report with some, I don't know, frame graph or some output?
The real fact is that this issue is not present on regular minions. Is not present on proxy minions that rely on HTTP. But once you disable multi-processing and switch to multi-threading, You can see the memory footprint increasing steadily, but surely from 80 megs to even 1 gig of memory.
I see.
That's not fun.
And is easy to reproduce? Do we have a process to reproduce the bug?
Yes, just start up a proxy minion, any proxy minion, for example, the Junos one or anything that relies on SSH, run commands, any command, and you'll see the minion, the memory increasing at every command, or after you just have a scheduled command to be executed 100 times. Check the memory, you'll see that it has at least 10 megs more. Run another 100 commands, and you'll see that it will go beyond 100 megs.
Cool. Do we have a GitHub issue for tracking the bug?
I did, but nobody looked into it.
Okay, can you give me the number?
Yeah, let me see. Okay, find it.
I know I've looked into at least one issue on GitHub that was talking about memory leaks. I'm also working on that right now with our testing efforts. We've had well, it's a memory leak that intermittently causes issues. The biggest issue that we've seen is that occasionally on the virtual machines, the memory will just fill up, and then the testing framework that's using SSH, the SSH process just dies, and that ends out. Of course, then the whole test suite fails because it, died in the middle of things. So I've been looking into that. We've verified that memory leaks are what cause or what exhibit that behavior with the SSH timeout issue that we've been seeing. But yeah, we've seen so it's interesting because we have two factors at play here. One of them could be our test suite setup and framework, and then the other part is the actual underlying salt code. It's not clear whether the problem that we're seeing is directly because of one or the other, or maybe both of them are acting in tandem to show us this, because we've seen 8 gigabytes or more of memory just get used up as we're running all of our test suites, which is kind of a problem. So that's something that I've been looking into now. I've seen a few issues that are suspect, but I haven't been able to pin it down yet. But that's something I'm currently working on.
And when we are sure that is inside the Python side, is not something external. No, it's not, the memory leak is not outside Python. We know for sure that it's in the Python side.
Yes, we're quite certain. One of the things that I did was I started running the process, our test, and then just hopped on the box and just watched top, and you could see that our processes just started, they just kept ticking up more and more memory, and eventually we burned through all of the physical memory and then started running into the swap space, and then we filled up the swap space, and as soon as the swap filled up, everything just halted, and we saw the SSH timeout. I've been looking, just kind of got into it yesterday afternoon and this morning. I've been looking into some things, And one of the things that popped out that's kind of suspect is our so I've just been looking at the GC. Let me see if I've got this up here. GC.getObjects, and then using getSizeOf, and so using the GC.getObjects to check through the objects in memory, and the number one size was dictionaries, and it looked like we had like 41 megabytes of dictionaries. I'm not sure how many dictionaries that equates to. That was something I'll be working on later today to try and get that nailed down to see, okay, is this like a million dictionaries? Is this 4 like gigantic ones? What is it? I'm just not really sure. The other part of that was the message pack.unpacker class. We had a couple of 100,000 K in memory was allocated for the unpacker, which seems high. And there's a theory that it might be that we're not consuming the unpacker or consuming these messages. And because when we're serializing the messages, we're turning everything into a dictionary that we pass across. So it's very likely that that's where all these dictionaries are being created. And then we're just maybe not consuming them, so there's never a chance for them to be garbage collected because there's still references to them. But at the moment, that's just a theory. We don't know for certain. My work here in the next several hours will be to get a better picture of what's going on there. You know, how many of these objects do we have? You know, if I can figure out maybe where they're being created, that would also be helpful. But and those are kind of the things that I'm looking at here in the near future.
Something very interesting I've noticed. For example, if you run a function, salt function, that to compute the result, it requires, let's say, 500 megs of memory. After the function finishes and the returns, the Proxy Minion will get stuck forever at 500 megs consumption. If you run another function that takes 700 megs to compute the result, then is going to bump and will stay there forever. I mean, till you run something that consumes more than that.
Yeah, and one of the things I was reading recently about memory allocation in Python that was kind of interesting is that for like certain small objects like integers and things like that, it's possible that Python will, didn't really understand what it was saying, but if I understood correctly, what it was saying is that Python doesn't, like, it sort of deallocates the memory, but it doesn't, like, it may be available to be allocated by something else, but you know, if you're looking at it in top, for instance, like you said, it will consume, say, 800 megabytes of memory, and it may free 600 megabytes, but it doesn't actually show that anywhere that it's freed that memory. But that being said, even if we are still freeing hundreds of megabytes of memory, at some point we're using more and we're increasing the amount of memory that we're using. So it definitely is hitting, we're using more than we should, and we're not deallocating it to make it, even if it's just available for other parts of the Python process.
Yeah.
We're definitely seeing that that the memory is not being freed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why I was suggesting, I mean, why I was looking into the multi-processing versus multi-threading is that my hunch is that when you execute something in a thread and that thread dies, with this Python is good, will free that memory and it goes away. So when that thread it finishes, is over. We don't have that issue anymore. But when it's within the same process, that thread will stay there. It looks like that memory that it was necessary in a thread. It's there forever.
Okay. Yeah, I know we have one thing that DWAS has been working on. I'm not sure if that's going to make it in today or in the next couple of days, but there is some very strange looking code around doing some multiprocessing and forking. It wasn't really clear that it was doing things the right way. So he's working on refactoring that to make it hopefully clean some of that issue up. But there are some other issues there that will hopefully be able to reduce a lot of our memory footprint that we've got our eye on.
Yeah, on the upside, it is better than in previous releases for two main reasons. Once there were some optimizations, and I've seen there was PR for something related in the latest release, latest major release in 2019.2. And also switching to Python 3, it helped a lot. Again, I've read on different places about memory consumption in Python and so on. I'm not very good at this. I still don't have a good understanding what's going on there. But people say that it's much better in Python 3, and I've seen it myself. But there are still issues. It still keeps growing the footprint of a Proxy Minion, not that quickly as previously, but still. So yeah, it is progress.
So we've definitely got some fun about memory leaks and trying to fix those. What else did you have on the agenda?
Okay. The second one is I can't say request, suggestion from actually more suggestions from the Python from the Salt community, especially for networking. Is when you have to manage a large network, you have this because of this one-to-one, you have one Proxy Minion running for one device. If you have 1,000 devices, then you have to spin up 1,000 Proxy Minions, which is not impossible. It's not It's not rocket science, but still, it's a bit of a challenge, and many people don't have the skills, either in the network community or simply because you have nowhere to spin 1,000 proxy minions just like that. And this is why one of the feedback I got very frequently is about the possibility to be able to spin up just one process, let's say, or at least, I don't know, 10 instead of 1,000 or 10,000, and manage only those, not many. Would you have any thoughts about
Um, so if I understood correctly, we're talking about the Minion processes.
Yes, as in number.
So instead of spinning up one process per Minion, we're talking about you know, something less or a different architecture.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a thought that I have had looking at some of the things that we're doing, and I know we've got some experiments going right now. I know Tom Hatch, who's working on this alternative architecture and using async IO, which I think would help a tremendous amount. But just in general, one of the things that I've noticed is that you know, I'd say a majority of the time that any one Minion process is using or is taking is just spent in waiting for a network communication. It's really not transferring a lot of data. I mean, in some cases it is, but not most of the time. And so if we could architect things in a slightly different way, and maybe make a heavier use of the reactor pattern, that I think we could alleviate a lot of the consumption that we see, both as far as processes and memory usage. If we were spending time and just you know, having smaller maybe reusable Minion objects, it's possible that we could really reduce the amount of resources that are required to run Salt, which I think would be great all around. So I think there are definitely some places there that we can make serious improvements in the underlying Salt system.
Cool, sounds good. Somewhat related to this, there was another suggestion going one step further, is about having a way to be able to execute arbitrary salt functions, just salt commands, without having any minions at all. So in like Ansible style, you just install a package on your computer or whatever, and just start running commands immediately.
Yeah, so we actually have a Salt SSH project that exists in Salt today, and there's even a working group around Salt SSH. So it's possible that would take care of whatever their needs are. But I know we have looked at kind of pulling that out and making it its own thing, so it can be a little bit better publicized because, I mean, I wasn't even aware that that existed until after I started working for SALT. And it's been around, I guess, for several years. It's just not very well publicized and kind of hidden. And so there are a lot of people who are like, hey, I would love to have a SALT that I don't have to install anything on the Minion. And yeah, we actually have that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's not publicized enough, and yeah, it's something I've used myself. Yeah, I like it. The thing is that doesn't fit well with the network devices for a couple of reasons.
Oh,
Firstly, because network devices don't behave like servers, unfortunately.
yeah.
They basically are just some stupid boxes where you can SSH. They give you a console, run some commands, and pretty much that's it. You can't, I mean, and the SSH, you can't, I know that SSH, Assault SSH does some tricky things, SSH into the server and tries to put some files. Well, you can't do this, unfortunately. We're not.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're thinking of something more like Fabric, for instance, where we're actually just run commands over SSH instead of the other way.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, this is the case with many
Network
devices. It's a sad reality. They, they started a few years ago to open up a little bit more. There are some vendors like Arista or Cumulus that provide you more access and allow you to do give you more flexibility. But mainstream vendors like Cisco or Juniper, they are still very archaic methodologies where you can't do much.
Yeah.
Just execute a command, get back an output, and pass that. Just take that chunk of text and extract the data you want from it.
Yeah, it's possible that I'm sure that the existing SALT SSH wouldn't work quite so well, but thinking about it, it's possible that that SALT SSH, especially if because we've talked about several things in regards to SALT SSH, especially with our move to Python 3, and so it's possible that as we work on that re-architecture and that change, that we would be able to adapt that in some way where we could actually make it work more like what we've talked about. So instead of communicating and running local processes, or like with SALT SSH does, where it copies over a client and executes that client on the Minion, it might be possible without a lot of effort to kind of massage that process and adjust it a little bit to where instead of running things locally, we just basically open up an SSH tunnel or a session on the box, the network device, whatever it is, and then run the commands that way instead of via a local shell, which definitely brings up all kinds of interesting possibilities. I think it'd probably be worth talking with the SSH working group. And I know Megan, one of the core engineers, she's heading up the SSH working group. So I can chat with her a little bit about that, and maybe join their next working group meeting and bring up that idea. That might be an interesting thing for for that group or a combination of our groups to tackle?
I have a suggestion here because I have some. So basically, part of my job is relate with working with the command mode run module a lot. So it's sending raw commands that are executed in the terminal, but also with some complication related with phroot. The funny thing here is that my phroot sometimes is able to execute Python inside. In those cases, I use a strategy similar to what Docker or Salt SSH module are using. So I wrap the Salt thing tarball, I inject this tarball inside the phroot and tar the stuff and send commands via Salt code. That's required, of course, that there is a Python inside the phroot. But in the case where there is not available a Python interpreter, I use the command run chroot. I make some improvement in this one, so I am able to send very complicated commands inside the chroot via this channel. So I wonder if we have a very dumb machine that can run any Python, so only I can run, I can send command. If one easy approach is to extend the command mode in such a way that we have command mode run SSH and send the shell script that is used in the parameter. Yeah, I inject that directly into the dump node in the case where there is not possible to execute Python in the other side.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and I think might be a great approach to do that.
Cool, sounds good. Along these lines, besides SSH, network devices also support and offer different APIs that I'm speaking about modern network gear that has an API. Instead of you issuing commands over SSH and giving you back all of text from where you hopefully extract something useful. Modern software now also provides APIs. Can be either via HTTP, can be of gRPC, or many other flavors. Most of these are already available in Salt in the Proxy minions, in the Proxy modules. There are Proxy modules that allow you to connect to a device and manage it via HTTP if that device has this API available over gRPC and so on. And for this reasoning, because Salt gave me this flexibility, I wrote a small tool, a wrapper around Salt. It's I'm calling it a Salt plugin. It's called Salt S-Proxy that allows you to manage devices without running any proxy minions at all, because when you run a command, it starts in a separate process, a very lightweight version of the proxy minion without beacons, without schedulers, without any of these things that wouldn't make sense, of course, in this context.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know I'm pretty sure I've saw your blog post about the S proxy. I thought that was a really neat idea. I definitely like the idea of being able to support communication via these APIs. Do you know if any of these APIs have they're kind of, I'm assuming these APIs are pretty distinct and they don't like conform to any kind of standard, right? They just whatever the manufacturer
You are correct. This is how the network world works.
Yeah. Yeah, so
They're completely different, and sometimes there are now some standardization organizations like OpenConfig, and even IETF started to standardize some of the things. Theoretically, this output should be the same. On some very, very new code. However, network vendors, as usually, decided to diverge from those standards. So I guess you imagine what it ended up looking at. Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit better, but in general, let's assume they are different.
yeah. Yeah, it would definitely be good though if we could create interfaces using some of those APIs or leverage those APIs instead for some of these other devices. That would I think that would definitely make the communication much more reliable between the devices, or at least I would hope so.
Yeah. As in communication in general, the trend is to switch more towards HTTP-based APIs, either directly HTTP or gRPC as in protobuf.
So, and Mirsha, I did see somewhere that you'd commented that this was pretty well received, the Salt as proxy, and there were a good number of like downloads. Have you received any feedback on that? Because I think one of your initial objectives was also to make sure that it is enough stable, and then eventually maybe see if you can merge that with like in the Salt repo.
Yeah, I actually didn't receive that much feedback. It was just like, okay, it works, thanks, and not much. I'm still waiting for feedback like, hey, this broke. Hey, this doesn't work as I was expecting. Yeah, and I'm also looking forward to understand what's the direction for SourceTech. I understand now you are looking into splitting up and moving components like SaltSH out in their own repository. So at this point, I'm not sure if it makes sense to integrate while you're looking into, having. But yeah, at some point, if this is well received, I will be happy to donate the entire repository under the SourceTech community. And
yeah, we're certainly looking at modularizing everything. I mean, that's the direction. Even the Salt Cloud is also heading, apart from Salt SSH. So
I didn't know
that. That's one of the objectives of the Salt Cloud Working Group, to eventually make it like a standalone. And internally as well, we've been discussing about modularizing Salt. But that's something which, and this, including the Salt as proxy as part of like Salt, that would certainly get impacted by these discussion of how we actually structure the modularization process. So yeah, I was more interested to see like the feedback that you've received, and also like how many downloads did you see?
Let me check. Yeah, feedback, unfortunately, I didn't get that much as I was hoping to. Yeah, it looked like it's been downloaded 8,000 times. But feedback, I mean, no one, very few people got in touch with me to say something. I've seen 1 or 2 issues so far, and pretty much that's it.
Well, 1 or 2 issues is either a good thing or a bad thing.
Exactly. For what I'm concerned, I'm using it almost every day. It does what I need to do, but I need to see it in more environments and more context, because otherwise, I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
I didn't mean to build a tool just for myself,
Yeah,
and or for my own use case. I want to be as generic as possible, and yeah, need to see it in many environments and many people.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's it.
So maybe can I talk about some bits that I want to work on?
Oh yes, please.
Okay, so I am part of SUSE. So something that we require from the network standpoint of view from Salt is to manage the different interfaces and have a proper state, the network state that is provided by Salt, uh, be as much as compatible with SUSE in the same way that is compatible with Debian and Red Hat. So part of my goal for the next 2-3 weeks is try to refactor the module and the state and try to express the common bits between Red Hat and SUSE in a different module that they can reuse, and on top of that, build an API that is providing the service also for Red Hat and for SUSE and for Debian. So this is a kind of work of first refactoring, implementing the missing bits and provide some test suite that guarantee that works properly for SUSE. When I saw SUSE, I mean for the typical distribution like lib, tumbleweed, microS, and the different family of SLE. So yeah, that's my goal, because we are so far when we want to manage some interface with Salt, we don't have a proper mechanism for doing that. So I somehow we need this feature inside the project. Yep, that's my main task for this team.
Cool. Are there any issues in the salt repo um, to along those lines, or are you just kind of working on your own?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean the one that required the feature is my team, so I'm working now alone. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, something that I wonder is that uh, I need to research that, but the refactoring here on top of the module maybe require moving code from the state to some util classes. I don't know how well received is going to be upstream, so I will wait for the reviews for the feedback. But I suspect that the proper way of doing that is remove the common code from the state to some util class. Um, I saw this behavior in other modules. I want to copy that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I will try to do something like that. Not sure how to, of course we have the test suite, so I know, I'm properly sure that we are not going to break anything for Red Hat nor Debian. And yes, I will try to expand this test suite to make the same kind of cover that we have for the other distribution for SUSE.
Nice. Do you know off the top of your head, is it just like one or two of the states, or is it several of them? And if it's just a couple of them, do you know which ones they are?
Yeah, it's so far the networking state is the one that has the most of the problems. And I'm still evaluating the network module. I am using the network module, so certain features are already in place, but for sure we have big problems with the network state. That in that case is one module. We want to, the minimal effort that we are going to do is fix this issue. We know for sure that there are more modules that need some SUSE compatibility, but this is like kind of critical.
Okay. Cool. Just as a, it might be something you're aware of or already doing. I know one of the things that we've, at least a couple of the core engineers have felt pretty strongly about is trying to work more. There was a blog article or maybe a talk on YouTube, but it was basically about this idea of I don't know, making your IO inside out. With a lot of systems, what you have is you have like step A, which calls step B, which calls step C, which actually does the input and output. But the point of this article was instead you should have step A, which does the input and output, but it also calls step B, which calls step C, and then those steps are actually doing the modification, and the actual business logic, if you will. And I know at least in one case, I shifted the architecture around a little bit to follow that pattern better. And it definitely made it much, much easier to test when the IO was happening at the very top level, because then I could just test, okay, all of my logic is happening down here based on all the data that I pass it. And then, because when you do that, you don't have to mock any of the IO devices or anything else. You just call that code and pass it data. And then then the IO happens at the kind of at the top level at the outside. So just maybe something to keep in mind as you're working on refactoring any of those. If you see possibilities for that, I would encourage taking those opportunities to make those changes. It will. I would love it if much more salt was organized that way.
I like the idea. Do you have, this makes completely sense. Do you have any pull requests where I can copy the pattern? I can see.
Yeah. I'll look that up and get it to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. And Murtra, did you have anything else on your agenda for today?
I think this is about it.
Okay. Cool. So
if anyone else would have anything to add for today, or we can call it a meeting.
So Mircha, usually, I took some notes today, so maybe I can send it across to you, and then later we upload it in the public community repo that we maintain. That's the place that all the working groups use to collaborate, upload the meeting notes and so on and so forth. We have even project boards if we want to maintain that. Divvy out the tasks basically and see where who's doing what. So just to maybe kind of like summarize the action items, I think Alberto mentioned the item that he was looking into where there, and I think Wayne mentioned he'll talk to Megan about the SALT SSH ones, where there are other action items that we need to talk about before we disperse?
Yeah, I think it's a very delicate issue how and who and where to start from looking into that memory issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very complex problem. I've been looking into it. I will be looking into it. But yeah, I think I would encourage anyone that has time and to check it out and see if they notice anything interesting.
Okay, perfect. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it from my side.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for your time.
Yeah, thanks. Guys, have a great day.
Thanks you too. Take care.
Thank you all.
Ciao.
Bye.